See, that's caught up with the Diddy situation. What I imagine was going on with Diddy is he was just building up what he needed to blackmail other people like they were blackmailing him. See, that's how Hollywood works. And in his case, I suspect he called up somebody who was running for office on the 15 years worth of recordings he had, and somebody wanted to get him out of the way. And instead of going through the FBI, they went through Homeland Security, which allows them to get the person declared to be a security risk dealing with the national security, and has them put in a position where they can be held incommunicado, so they can't talk to anybody, so they can't squeal or publicize what they may know. Hey, this is all about so and so. This, remember, we were talking about Bond when he was first contacted after the service of the search warrants to West Coast, East Coast. He was on his way to an island, which incidentally did not have an extradition agreement with the U.S., and he was allowed to go. He made arrangements when he came back to get a New York residence so he could be close to the prosecution. He surrendered his passport through his attorneys. He made arrangements to surrender. But what wound up happening is they double crossed him and they busted him at a shopping mall instead of waiting for his surrender date. And then after he had been cooperative, taken steps above and beyond to make sure he was present for the duration of the proceedings, had a $50 million bond with 5 different security arrangements attached to it. And they want to say, hey, you can't be bonded out. You got to be held without bond because you are a national security threat. I'm not buying it. And the other thing is, it's not that I have not represented people personally who were charged with this, but it was just ordinary mess with pimps and prostitutes who were dealing with prostitutes in Mississippi and Arkansas and bringing them across the bridge from Arkansas, from West Memphis, Arkansas to Memphis, Tennessee, or going down to Tupelo, or going down like they have in the series, you know,
Well,
Pussy Valley.
oh,
Clients that used to work down there, they were strippers, and they also sold a little on the side.
well,
So they, you know, this wasn't, they didn't consider it big time liability. 1-2 years on the sentence, and they're holding somebody in prison in lieu of a $50 million bond when what he's charged with is man-egg violations, which were designed to get rid of the nuisance of Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight champion of the world, who had a white wife and traveled around with her and her white girlfriends, and they didn't like that image. So you know what he got for being the first person convicted of an act set up to get him? He got 1 year, but he got extra time tacked on there because he escaped. So what you have is Diddy is being prosecuted essentially on 3 counts of the Mann Act. Same thing they got Jack Johnson with.
right.
So why put $50 million on something that in the scheme of things is not a big time case?
Well, I want to do a quick update on Diddy because now Diddy, well, first off, he wants to delay his sex trafficking trial because it's scheduled to start May the 5th, and that's just in a couple of weeks. But he's trying to delay it. And his team wrote a letter to the judge that the delay will give them the necessary time to prepare his defense after a new superseding indictment in the case. The latest indictment from earlier this month, including additional counts of sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution from a new victim. It says attorney Mark Agnafalo and Tina Garagos, I know I'm saying their names wrong, previously requested at least a 2-week delay during a hearing on April 14th, where Diddy pleaded not guilty to new charges and accused prosecutors of failing to share evidence. Prosecutors, meanwhile, claimed this could just be a stalling tactic from Diddy's team. Judge Subramanian.
Don't worry about saying the names. Just say
Oh,
DJ because nobody pays attention.
okay, good. The judge gave Diddy's lawyers a deadline of today to submit their request for a delay, saying the case was a freight train moving towards a trial. So, also with that said, Diddy wants to add Young Thug's lawyer Brian Still to his defense team, and I think that is a good look, and I think he should for Diddy. So
That's how you get a case. So you go to trial and you show what you have. Now, I like that.
I like it too. So it says in a motion filed this week, Tuesday, in a Manhattan federal court, Brian Still requested to be admitted as one of Combs' lawyers ahead of the upcoming trial, which is scheduled to go to jury selection May the 5th. Such approval is necessary for out-of-state lawyers to practice in new courts.
New York courts. What the Supreme Court ruled a long time ago is for an out-of-state lawyer, as long as he associates an in-state lawyer who is certified as being familiar with the local rules, procedures, and novelties of law,
Mm-hmm.
it's not unreasonable for him to practice 2 or 3 times a year in a foreign jurisdiction. Like F. Lee Bailey, who was involved in the OJ case, he's not licensed to practice in California. At least back then, he took the bar a whole bunch of times and didn't pass, but he was permitted upon association with local counsel, as they call it, to practice.
So Brian Still, we know he is a major heavy hitter. He is a good attorney. So what do you think how is this going to affect Sean Combs'
Yeah,
upcoming
I don't
trial?
know if it will one way or the other. It depends upon what the prosecution's case is about and how good his lawyers are with fending the accusations off or cross-examining witnesses and making convincing arguments on final argument to the jury. And in the process of selecting a jury on front, which will be crucial on this case. And that's an art form because most lawyers have no clue as to how to select a jury. And in fact, in Memphis, I implemented a program for capital cases where the death penalty was demanded, where I set up a crew that would deal with interrogating, interviewing, investigating prospective juries. See, jury selection, to give you a very simplistic version of what it's about, let's suppose we're having a food cooking contest, right? Sounds good. Who wouldn't want to be on a food cooking contest? Well, let's supposing that the subject matter of the contest was who makes the best sushi. A lot of people would be licking their lips and other ones would go, oh, who wants to eat raw fish bait? Or maybe you wanted to talk about steak, and the idea is that the steaks had to be rare to medium rare, and a lot of people would lick their lips, and some other people would be grimacing because, ooh, it's raw meat. Or let's say it's going to be a chitlin cooking contest, and some people go, heck no, I'm not eating anybody's chitlins. I don't care how well they clean them. I don't recycle my own toilet paper, and I'm not eating Mr. Pig stuff, and you can see what the straw and the corn down in the bottom of the bucket is about. So it's, can you handle the dish that will be put on your plate in front of you at the table and eat it objectively and be able to properly assess it? So you have stage one, the jury selection. Part of the jury selection is establishing rapport and familiarity with the jury, and also determining in the process of their selection whether objectively they could handle sushi or rare beef or chitlins or whatever it may be, or whether they're vegetarian and can't handle any of the above. Then what you want to do is familiarize them up front with the nature of the case and try to pick people who would be receptive to your theory of the case. Next thing that happens once you have the jury, then there's the opening statement, and you have to craft your opening statement so it matches what you anticipate is going to be developed through the evidence. The evidence you should know pretty thoroughly relative to your own case and to the other one, because you are expected to interview all witnesses, do investigations relative to the circumstances and the facts. When you ask a question, don't ask one that you don't know the answer to unless it's one of the rare safe ones and you know enough about what you're doing to break the rules. Next thing is ask questions that will elicit answers that will set you up for your final argument. Destroy the other person's case by destroying the credibility of their witnesses, catching them in contradictions, and setting them up to fall into the trap you've set for them when you've ordered the jury. For example, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you recall when you told your teenage children to be home no later than 10 o'clock because it's Thursday and it's a school night, and they drugged themselves in it going on 3 o'clock in the morning. Do you remember the stories that you heard? Now, the judge will probably charge you that you are to filter all of the testimony and evidence through your own observations and experiences in life. Will you assure defense, prosecution, and the state that you will do so? And then you go down and you ask each one of them, they'll say yes. And then you say, do you remember what the child said when they tried to explain themselves? They went and tried to lay out every crack in the sidewalk that they stepped on to give credibility to what was obviously a lie. Now, ladies and gentlemen, would you assure everyone involved in this that if you hear somebody testify in this kind of fashion from the witness stand, that you will remember these things when you filter it through your own observations and experiences in life? And they'll go through it. So when you come up with the final argument and the witness that you suspect is going to testify like that is done so, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, when we were getting ready to select you for this trial, these questions came out, and you assured us that you would remember these things. Now, did you or did you not hear exactly that same thing from the following witnesses? And why did you hear it? Because as we discussed, they align and they're trying to put in a lot of facts and details that don't really have anything to do with this, trying to give you the semblance of reality and truthfulness. And you go on and you do this. And that's how you lay out a case. It's from start to finish. You just don't jump into it piecemeal like they do in the movies. By the way, if you want to see how people work, good defense lawyers work, and these are rookies, believe it or not, the series that's most impressed me in my career at the end of it is not Law and Order. It is Daredevil by Marvel that you can get on the Disney Channel. Those two young lawyers, one of whom is the Daredevil and he's blind, they set it up beautifully. They talk about the same kind of considerations you actually have in a real case, especially if it's a serious one, and how you go about setting the thing up with the arguments, the prepping the witnesses, and so on and so forth. Very real. So check it out if you want to see how it's really done. And the other one that's a movie, I think best captures this process is the one with Al Pacino known as Justice for All.
That's a good movie as well. So I want to swing back real quick, wrap it up with Brian Still. I think I think he's going to lay it out the same way with the way you just explained it, and I think he's going to bring a lot of I don't entertainment for lack of a better word. Like this trial is going to be kind of exciting because honey, he brought the the heat to the judge, to the prosecutors, to the witnesses in the Young Thug trial. So I think that is a good look for Diddy, and he has the money to afford them. And I think it's a good look for Brian Still. And one more thing.
What? Let me add one thing to this. By the way, audience, the best criminal defense lawyers are not necessarily the most expensive. The most expensive, by virtue of the expense that they charge, are going to have a limited clientele, which means a limited number of occasions and causes to be in the courtroom on. So you might find somebody that does it because of his passion for justice, who charges a more moderate fee and gets into court a lot, might be your best option, not necessarily the most expensive one, because they tend to be well backed up with a lot of administrative assistance, but they lack the experience. And the one you really might want to get is an old country lawyer who's handled a lot of cases of all different kinds and has a lot of homilies, anecdotes, and everything to bring to bear. And part of this effort of coming up with a good defense or prosecution or representing the plaintiff is a lawyer who can entertain the jury, because if the lawyer is boring and putting the jury to sleep, they aren't paying attention to him. Whereas the one that's keeping them awake because he's entertaining and interesting, he's got a leg up on everybody. And 47 years ago, old white chancellor, now dead, took a liking to me. And he said, Lawyer Brown, he said, I'm going to tell you one thing. He said, when you come in here, this stuff will drive you crazy if you don't have a sense of humor, because humanity can sometimes get very tiresome. He said, but go pay attention to good stand-up comics, because they look at life differently, and that'll help you out when you present to a jury. And if you're entertaining the jury and keeping them amused, they'll pay attention to you while they're falling asleep on the other son of a bitch who's dull and boring.
Well, I want to bring this into the fold as well because he wants to add another type of attorney to his case, Sean Combs. Diddy is reportedly urgently seeking a black female attorney to join his legal team as the trial draws near. So I think that's strategic.
It may be DEI, maybe not,
I
maybe
don't
yeah.
think it's DEI. If it's DEI, okay, that's why he hired Brian Still.
Except the brother stood up.
Right.
He
So,
upheld. By the way, I appreciated that, because looking at the lawyers that were representing the defense on that whole thing down there in Georgia,
wait, I don't want to go into that. I got
I'm not going to, but it's on this because it's germane to this. I was not looking at the most accomplished lawyers when it came to presentation in a court of their cases. Some of them high priced, I assume, considering who had hired them. They were boring. They stuttered, they stammered, they went all over the place, and they kept getting held up with sustained objections because they hadn't had those objections cast at them before. and had experience with getting around them. So I thought some of them, though they looked like they were working hard, they were kind of clumsy. But I liked this guy because he stood up and he was willing to go to jail to keep from violating the confidences that were involved in what he was doing when that ex parte thing came up. So I think that's a good selection because if you get a lawyer who's got heart and he's not stupid, you are much better off than having a pompous fool who may have a lot of backup, may have done well in law school, but he doesn't have balls.
All right.
You want a
So I'm
lawyer
gonna get
with
back.
balls.
I want to get back to the black lawyer here. So it says Sean Diddy Combs is reportedly in search of a black female lawyer to join his legal team. The embattled rapper was recently slammed with 2 more charges, as reports suggest his infamous freak off party videos could be brought up in court. This comes after a report shares some insights on Sean Diddy Combs' prison lifestyle, including the kind of currency he uses while locked up. So Diddy is on a hunt for a black female lawyer, and maybe he's want to specifically add on a black woman lawyer because a lot of his plaintiffs are black women. And I know his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she will be taking a stand during this trial. And I know Brian Still is probably going to rip her to shreds. So adding a black lawyer, a lot of times with men adding the opposite sex to represent them, I guess it can play to the jury.
It's a matter of outlook. If the woman is level headed, okay. But some of them seem to be more concerned with trying to defeat their opponents than they are with winning the case. So the use of having a female lawyer is you put her to work cross examining any female witnesses that come up. And I don't think everybody involved is going to be female, and you're not going to need that person all the time. But sometimes a woman can get away with, well, just like you hear, some Negroes frequently use the N word over and over on social media. They can get away with it, whereas somebody white would probably get chastised for doing it. And, you know, you get people who are black people, not Negroes, they tend not to use the word as repetitiously or at all, except when they're trying to insult somebody.